Deep inside a cave in northern Spain, archaeologists found a pile of old bones. At first, nothing seemed strange. Bones are what you expect to find in an ancient cave. But when they looked closer, they saw the marks, cut marks, scrape marks, the same marks left on the bones of deer and horses that were butchered for meat. Except these weren't animal bones. They were human. Someone, almost 1,000,000 years ago, had taken the bodies of other people and treated them exactly like food. And here is the part that has haunted researchers ever since. This wasn't a single desperate act. It happened again, and again, and again. So the question isn't just who the first cannibals were. The real question, the one that's much harder to answer, is why. To find the beginning of this story, you have to go to a place called Grandolina in the Atapuerca Mountains of Spain. The bones found here belong to an ancient human species called Homo antecessor, one of our distant relatives, who lived roughly 800,000 years ago. This is the oldest solid evidence of human cannibalism anywhere on Earth. And what the bones reveal is chilling. There were at least 11 individuals, and almost all of them were young, children and teenagers. Their bones showed the unmistakable signs of butchery, cut marks where flesh was removed. Some bones had been broken open, likely to access the marrow. One recent discovery was even more striking: the neck bone of a small child, no older than 5, with clear cut marks. One archaeologist described the remains as having been treated no differently from animal prey, not buried, not mourned, as far as we can tell. The evidence suggests they were consumed rather than buried. Now, when most of us hear the word cannibal, we picture one thing: starving people, driven to a terrible choice to survive. And sometimes that's exactly what it was. Scientists call this survival cannibalism. When there is truly nothing else to eat, when the alternative is death, humans throughout history have crossed that line to stay alive. It would be easy to assume that's the whole story, that these ancient people were simply starving, but the evidence doesn't quite fit. Because at Grandolina, the cannibalism wasn't a one-time emergency. It happened repeatedly over long periods of time, and the human bones were found mixed in with plenty of animal bones, meaning there was other food available. They weren't out of options. So if they weren't starving, why were they doing it? This is where the mystery deepens. Some researchers believe that for Homo antecessor, other humans may simply have been seen as another source of meat. A resource, not friends, not family, but rival groups, hunted and eaten the way you'd hunt any other animal. Scientists call this gastronomic cannibalism, eating human flesh as food, as part of normal life. If that's true, it means something unsettling about our distant relatives. That the line between us and them, between a person and a piece of prey, was one they didn't always draw. But there's a strange twist that makes even this explanation harder to believe. In recent years, a scientist decided to actually calculate it. He worked out how many calories are in a human body, part by part. And what he found was surprising. Compared to the huge animals these people hunted, bison, horses, deer, a human body doesn't offer very much meat at all. In other words, if you were only after calories, eating another human was barely worth the effort and the risk. So the mystery only gets deeper. If it wasn't always about survival, and it wasn't really about calories either, then what was it about? To find a clue, we jump forward in time to a cave in England called Gough's Cave. And what was found here is perhaps the eeriest discovery of all. Around 15,000 years ago, people lived in this cave, and they too practiced cannibalism. The human bones here carry the same cut marks, the same tooth marks, but they also reveal something more deliberate, something almost ceremonial. The skulls had been carefully shaped. The researchers who studied them, including a scientist named Sylvia Bello at the Natural History Museum, discovered that these weren't just broken skulls. They had been worked, cleaned, and turned into cups, drinking vessels made from human heads. And on one human bone they found something even stranger, a deliberate zigzag pattern, carefully engraved. Not the marks of butchery, not an accident, a design. Someone had taken the time to decorate the bones of the dead. This was not the work of starving people gulping down whatever they could. This was careful, intentional. It meant something. And that points us toward the answer that many researchers now believe. For a lot of ancient peoples, cannibalism may not have been about hunger at all. It may have been about meaning, about ritual. There's a name for eating the bodies of your own people: endocannibalism. And across history, some cultures have done it not out of cruelty, but out of respect, a way of honoring the dead, a belief that by consuming a part of someone who has died, you keep them with you, their strength, their spirit, staying inside the living. Imagine it, not a monster in the dark, but a grieving family, performing the most sacred ritual they knew, saying goodbye to someone they loved in the only way that made sense to them. Suddenly, the skull cups look different. Not gruesome trophies, but sacred objects. And the zigzag carving becomes not a horror, but a mark of care. We may never know for certain, but it suggests that what looks like a nightmare to us may have been, to them, an act of love. Here's what's perhaps the most surprising part of all. This wasn't the behavior of a few strange, isolated groups. When archaeologists look across prehistoric Europe, they find evidence of cannibalism again and again, at more than a dozen separate sites across hundreds of thousands of years. It wasn't just Homo antecessor. Our close cousins, the Neanderthals, did it too. Sites across Europe show the same butchery marks on Neanderthal bones. And our own species, Homo sapiens, did it as well. Cannibalism, it turns out, is not some rare glitch in the human story. It's woven right through it. Survival, food, ritual, grief. For different reasons, in different times, our ancestors repeatedly ate their own kind. It is one of the oldest human behaviors there is. So, who were the first cannibals? The answer is, they were us, or near enough. Our ancestors and our cousins going back the better part of 1,000,000 years. But the deeper question, the one the bones can't fully answer, is the one we started with. Why? And maybe that's what makes this story so unsettling. Not the blood, or the bones, or the skull cups, but the fact that when we look at these ancient people, we can't simply call them monsters. Because sometimes it was survival, sometimes it may have been hunger of a colder kind, and sometimes, perhaps most hauntingly of all, it was love and grief and ritual. The same species that could carve a cup from a loved one's skull could also weep for them. That is the real mystery of the first cannibals. Not what they did, but how close it sits even now to the parts of us we'd rather not look at.